The lights went dark. 15 million people watching live held their breath. Simon Cowell, the man who'd seen it all, who never flinched at fame or failure, stood frozen at the judge's desk. His hand trembled slightly as he reached for the microphone. But he didn't speak. Instead, he did something no one had ever seen him do in 20 years of television. He turned away from the cameras, walked off the stage, and disappeared into the shadows backstage. The audience sat in stunned silence. What had just happened? What could possibly make Simon Cowell walk away from a live show? The answer was standing alone on that stage. A 90-year-old man named Harold. And the secret he just shared would change everything. 3 hours earlier, backstage at the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles, producers were reviewing the night's lineup. Standard auditions. Singers, dancers, comedians. Then they saw Harold's application. Age 90. Talent, storytelling. No music. No act. Just words. The production assistant laughed. Is this a joke? But something made them call him in anyway. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the note he'd written at the bottom of his form. I don't have much time left. But I have something worth saying. When Harold arrived at the theater, crew members noticed him immediately. Not because of his age, though that was remarkable, but because of the way he moved. Slowly, deliberately, like someone who'd learned that rushing through life meant missing it entirely. He wore a simple cardigan, faded jeans, and brown leather shoes that had clearly walked thousands of miles. In his weathered hands, he carried a single photograph in a silver frame. A stage manager approached him. Mr. Harold, we need to take that frame from you during the performance. Stage rules. Harold smiled gently. I understand rules, son. I wrote plenty of them in my lifetime. But this frame stays with me. It's not a prop. It's my compass. The stage manager looked into Harold's eyes and saw something that made him step back. Authority. Not the kind that demands. The kind that's earned through decades of living. He nodded and walked away. In the theater, the audience buzzed with energy. Families, fans, tourists who'd traveled across the country for a chance to see America's Got Talent live. Simon Cowell sat at the judge's table in his signature black suit, arms crossed, that familiar expression of skeptical authority on his face. Next to him, the other judges chatted and laughed. Another night. Another audition. Nothing unusual. But what none of them knew was that in less than an hour, everything they thought they understood about performance, about talent, about what truly matters, was about to shatter. The host's voice boomed through the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, our next contestant is 90 years old, traveling here from a small town in Montana. Please welcome Harold. Polite applause. Some curiosity. A few whispers. 90? What's he going to do, tell jokes? Simon leaned back in his chair, pen in hand, ready to deliver one of his famously cutting critiques. Harold walked onto the stage. Not slowly because he was frail. Slowly because he was present. Every step deliberate. Every breath intentional. He reached the microphone stand, adjusted it slightly, and looked out at the audience. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. Not a performance smile. A real one. The kind that comes from someone who's made peace with life. Simon spoke first, his British accent sharp as ever. Harold. 90 years old. What brings you here tonight? Are you a singer? Dancer? Magician? The audience chuckled. Harold looked directly at Simon. No, Mr. Cowell. I'm none of those things. I'm just a man who's lived long enough to learn something worth sharing. And I thought, before I go, someone should hear it. The theater went quiet. Not the polite quiet of anticipation. The deep quiet of attention. Simon's expression shifted slightly. His arms uncrossed. He leaned forward, just an inch. All right, Harold. You have the stage. Harold held up the silver-framed photograph. Even from the judge's table, they could see it was old. Black and white. Creased. This is my wife, Eleanor. We met when I was 19. She was 17. We were married for 68 years. She passed 3 months ago. His voice didn't break. It was steady. Strong. But underneath, you could hear the weight of loss carried with dignity. The audience stirred. Some shifted in their seats. Others felt tears beginning to form before they even knew why. Simon's pen stopped moving. He set it down on the table. Harold continued. People ask me all the time now. Harold, how do you keep going? Aren't you lonely? Aren't you scared? And I tell them the same thing I'm going to tell all of you tonight. The secret to happiness isn't what you think it is. Subscribe and leave a comment, because what Harold says next, no one in that theater or watching at home will ever forget. Harold looked at the photograph in his hands. For 68 years, I woke up every morning next to the woman I loved. And you know what I learned? Happiness isn't something you find. It's not something you chase. It's not in success or money or fame. Happiness is what you give away when you're not looking. He paused. Let the words settle. The theater was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning hum. Eleanor and we didn't have much. I worked construction. She was a teacher. We raised 3 kids in a 2-bedroom house. We drove the same car for 20 years. But every single morning before I left for work, I would write her a note. Just one sentence. Something I noticed about her. Something I loved. Something I was grateful for. Simon's hand moved slowly to his face. His fingers pressed against his temple. He was listening now. Not as a judge. As a human being. I did that for 68 years. That's 24,820 notes. And you know what she did? She kept every single one. After she passed, I found them. Boxes and boxes of folded paper, organized by year, tied with ribbon. My whole life, written in sentences I thought she'd forget. A woman in the front row started crying. Not quiet tears. Real sobs. Others followed. The judges sitting next to Simon exchanged glances. One of them wiped her eyes. Another stared at the stage, transfixed. Harold looked directly at Simon. Mr. Cowell, I know what you do. You judge talent. You decide who's good enough. Who deserves success. And I respect that. Someone has to. But I came here tonight to tell you something that no talent can replace. No success can buy. No audience can give you. Simon's jaw tightened. His eyes were fixed on Harold. Not blinking. Not moving. The secret to happiness is this. Love the people around you so loudly that when you're gone, they can still hear it. I'm 90 years old. I don't have many days left. Maybe weeks. Maybe months. But I'm not afraid. Because Eleanor still hears me. Every day. Through those notes. Through the life we built. Through the love we gave away when we didn't think anyone was watching. And then Harold said the sentence that broke Simon Cowell. I don't need a golden buzzer, Mr. Cowell. I don't need fame. I just need you to know this. The only performance that matters is the one you give to the people you love when the cameras are off. Silence. Complete. Absolute. The kind of silence that feels sacred. Simon's hand slowly fell from his face. His chest rose and fell, breathing deeper now. His eyes glistened. Not quite tears. But close. Closer than anyone had ever seen. He tried to speak. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. The other judges looked at him, waiting for the famous Simon Cowell response. The cutting remark. The critique. The verdict. But it didn't come. Instead, Simon stood up. Slowly. Not dramatically. Just stood. He looked at Harold. Then at the audience. Then back at Harold. And then, without a word, he turned and walked off the stage. The audience gasped. Cameras swung wildly trying to follow him. The host's voice crackled with confusion. Simon? Simon, are you? But Simon was already gone. Backstage. Into the shadows. Away from the lights. Away from the performance. away from everything. No one knew what was happening. But Harold did. He simply nodded, smiled softly, and said, "He heard me." Backstage, producers rushed to Simon. "Are you okay? Do you need medical? Should we stop the show?" Simon stood with his back to them, one hand pressed against the wall. His shoulders rose and fell. He wasn't crying. But he was something else. He was feeling. Fully. Completely. Without the armor he'd worn for decades. A producer tried again. "Simon, we're live. We need you back out there." Simon shook his head. "Give me a minute." His voice was barely a whisper. "Just give me a minute." On stage, Harold stood alone at the microphone. The audience didn't know what to do. Clap? Leave? Wait? Then, one person stood up. A man in the balcony. He started clapping. Slowly. Then another person. Then another. Within seconds, the entire theater was on its feet, applauding not for talent, not for performance, but for truth. Harold bowed slightly, held the photograph of Eleanor to his chest, and walked off stage. As he passed through the wings, he saw Simon standing there, still turned away. Harold stopped. Put a hand on Simon's shoulder. "It's okay, son. It's okay to feel it." Simon turned. His eyes were red. Not from tears. From something deeper. Recognition. He looked at Harold and said something the cameras couldn't hear, something only the two of them would ever know. Harold nodded, patted his shoulder once more, and walked away. 5 minutes later, Simon returned to the judges' table. The show continued. But something had changed. The audience could see it. The other judges could see it. Simon didn't make a single cutting remark for the rest of the night. He listened differently. Responded differently. Judged differently. After the show, reporters swarmed Simon. "What happened out there? Why did you leave?" Simon looked at them, thought for a long moment, and said, "I needed to remember why I started doing this. And Harold reminded me. It's not about the show. It's about the people." Share and subscribe so this story will never be forgotten. 3 weeks later, Harold passed away peacefully in his sleep. His family called the production team to let them know. They said he'd watched the episode when it aired, smiled through the whole thing, and said, "That's exactly what I needed to say." That night, Simon posted something on his social media. No caption. Just a photograph. It was a handwritten note on simple paper. "Harold, I heard you. And I'm listening now. Thank you for reminding me what matters. Simon." The note went viral. Millions of people shared it. Commented on it. Cried over it. Not because it was a celebrity moment. But because it was a human one. Harold's secret to happiness had traveled far beyond that stage. It reached people in hospital rooms, nursing homes, apartments, suburbs, cities across the world. People started writing notes to the ones they loved. Saying the things they'd been too busy to say. Giving away love loudly, just like Harold taught them. The production team later revealed that backstage, after Harold left, they found something. On the chair where he'd been sitting before going on stage, there was an envelope. Inside, 20 handwritten notes. Each one addressed to a different member of the crew. The lighting director. The stage manager. The makeup artist. The security guard. People Harold had met for only minutes. Each note said the same thing. "Thank you for seeing me today. You made me feel like I mattered. That's a gift." Even in his final performance, Harold was giving love away. Teaching by example. Showing that kindness isn't reserved for the people we know well. It's for everyone we meet, even briefly, even once. Years later, when people ask Simon about the most memorable audition he's ever seen, he doesn't talk about viral singers or golden buzzers. He talks about Harold. The 90-year-old man who didn't sing, didn't dance, didn't perform. He just told the truth. And in doing so, he gave the greatest performance of all. The performance of a life well lived. Because in the end, that's the only performance that truly matters. Not the one the world sees. but the one the people you love remember when you're gone. Harold knew that. And for one unforgettable night, he made sure Simon Cowell, 15 million viewers, and everyone watching knew it too. The secret to happiness isn't complicated. It's not hidden. It's not reserved for the lucky or the talented. It's simple. Love loudly. Give generously. Live presently. And when your time comes, leave behind so much love that the people you cherish can still feel it, hear it, and live by it long after you're gone. That's what Harold did. And that's why Simon Cowell walked off stage. Not because he was running away, but because he needed a moment to feel what he'd been too guarded to feel for years. The weight of truth. The power of love. The reminder that beneath every persona, every brand, every celebrity, there's just a person. A person who needs to hear, just like the rest of us, that what we do when no one's watching is what defines us. Harold's story didn't end on that stage. It lives on in every note written, every kindness given, every moment of presence chosen over performance. That's the secret. That's what made Simon Cowell walk off stage. And if it can reach him, it can reach all of us.